Right, so I've only got a very limited window in which to make a video. So if you thought my previous videos were badly edited or yeah, a bit budget, you haven't seen nothing yet. Which is a shame, right? Because this book is one of the best books I've ever read. I consider it certainly like the first kind of half of it is up there with any other book you can name. I think across any genre that I've read, in terms of the impact on how you think, your consciousness, how you kind of perceive your day-to-day interactions. This is one of those books that has had all those kind of cliche effects on me in terms of the way I think and changing my view. And I'm never going to forget it. I'm going to recommend it to everyone I speak to. I really think this is one of the best books you can read. That book is, hopefully that's in the description, but the book is The Philosopher's Stone by Colin Wilson. And yeah, it's absolutely profound. So it's about he starts off as a teenager, young guy who's sort of interested in academics, and kind of that spans a lot of genres. So he is almost interested in academia for academia's sake, it seems. So clearly he's interested, it's a science fiction book. Clearly he's interested in science and maths, but it also spans other genres. So kind of mysticism, classical music, which there was some pretty heavy classical music references, which went way over my head. I spent a lot of time on Wikipedia looking those up. But also, obviously, yeah, science, maths, philosophy to an extent. And it's all kind of, all of it's all referenced as well. It's like the author's clearly very well read. So a lot of the things he's researching or the papers he talks about are real papers that you can cite and go and look up. So yeah, anyway, this young guy meets this. He meets this academic who's an older man, wealthy, and he kind of becomes this older man's apprentice. Isn't the wrong word, but he sort of looks up to this man as a mentor, and they kind of live together and spend a lot of time together. It is platonic, the relationship. But I'm pretty sure it does read a little bit differently these days. But anyway, so through this kind of all these kind of academic things that he's looking up, he eventually kind of hones in onto untapping his frontal cortex and kind of expanding the human mind and the human consciousness, and to the point where he almost develops superpowers, although they're very much kind of foundationalized in the book, right? So he makes it very clear that what he's doing isn't supernatural. It's just unlocking the potential of the human mind. But through that, he kind of gains abilities such as eternal life, and he stops aging. And those very nice things. He effectively becomes telepathic as well. And I'm saying it's all grounded in science, and obviously those things sound ridiculous, right? But the book is so well referenced, so well read and structured. So well read. The author is so well read, and the book is so well structured that it feels realistic. I was 90% of the way there to just believing that this was a genuine book. Almost like a manifestation of a scientific paper about what is going to be possible. It was that good. So the book's in two parts, and this is kind of true for all. Well, I think almost all like science fiction books. You can kind of structure them in this way, and so this one's a new wave book. New wave books do this a lot, where the world is in books where the world is pretty similar to Earth, and to Earth as you, the reader, would understand it. The books have this kind of format where the first part is establishing how the world is different, like what scientific technology or breakthrough or what power or whatever it is it that makes this world different? And then the second part is kind of what is how do those differences affect these characters and this universe, and what things are we going to tackle, and ultimately what themes are you going to explore. And obviously in some books, that first bit is kind of only 1 or 2 pages, or it's almost the start of the book is just, this is the new world, this is different. And in other books like this one, the whatever the new thing is that makes this a science fiction book and makes it different can take a lot longer to establish, and it's kind of layered and more realistic. And this book is that second one, where the first kind of 60% of the book takes a long time to get to the point where you would consider it to be a science fiction book. It's almost kind of a character study of this guy. So that first 60% of the book is basically the bit I described earlier in the synopsis, and it is just one of the most fascinating, brilliant things I've ever read. I would recommend it to anyone. I think if you're a science fiction fan, this absolutely should be in your repertoire. It should be one that you read, and I would put it alongside the all-time hard-hitting greats like Frankenstein that had a profound impact on me, like 1984 that also had a profound impact on me. And I haven't read a book. I read those two books about 15 years ago. I have not read a book that had the kind of impact on me that this one did. And it was so cleverly done. It was so well structured. It was so well layered. Everything kind of built on itself. You really understood the point he was making because he feeds it to you in little bits at a time that build on top of each other. So you really get invested and believe that this is this is possible. And I think the author, to an extent, thinks not exactly that it is, not that you can have these almost superpowers, but that you can things like slow the aging process through how you think. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's had a profound impact on me, on my perception of how my brain works and what's important and what I need to focus on. Really has had that impact on me. The second half of the book, or kind of the second, I think about 40%, I'd say, is not anywhere near as good. It's kind of a bit kitsch. It just becomes a sort of slightly dramatic mystery. It's very pulpy. It doesn't really have in any way the same weight and artistic merit as the first bit. It's not bad in and of itself, but if that first bit, that first 60% is maybe a 10 out of 10, and then this next bit is maybe like a 6 out of 10. It's fine. If this was the entirety of the book, I'd be sitting here now saying it's fine, read it. But yeah, it didn't really do a lot for me. But it doesn't matter. Like the first bit is so profound, and you have to read it, that it doesn't really matter that the second bit isn't. And almost I'd say, the point he's trying to make is made in that first bit. And if you get a bit bored in the second bit, then give up. It's fine. It's not. I can't. Even, I read it about a week ago. I can't even remember how it ends. It just doesn't matter to me. But it's not bad. It has these kind of almost direct comparisons to Lovecraft. Lovecraft is mentioned quite a lot throughout the book, and it becomes almost a Lovecraftian book, the second bit. I've heard people say it's scary. I don't know what they're talking about. It's not even remotely scary. I mean, maybe I'm just, maybe I've just watched too many movies, but it's not scary. It's just, I don't know, it's less powerful, but it's fine. I'm underselling it here. It's still worthwhile finishing it. Yeah, the author is a really interesting guy. I said before, he's like really well read, and he's had a really interesting life. If you go on kind of his bibliography, not bibliography, biography, and read a little bit about him, which I only had a cursory glance, but it seems like he has some very interesting opinions and groups that he was associated with or allegedly associated with, which I don't know. I don't know how much to read into that, and how much it necessarily affected this book or these views. And I kind of think it doesn't matter. He's such an interesting, although the book is such an interesting construction. I'd call it a masterpiece. The first 60%, that and the author is, you have to be a very capable, well-read person to make a book so powerful that I'm sort of less interested in all the other stuff and maybe what he did in his later life. Maybe one last point is, the book. So obviously, I said the book has these kind of scientific references throughout, and obviously, this was written in like I think the 60s or the 50s, maybe 60s. I definitely could have looked that up before that, but anyway, a long time ago, and obviously, a lot of the science in it is a bit out of date. So if you kind of, like I do, fact check when he quotes a study, you can kind of see that some of these maybe was at the time considered to be mainstream science, or not really debunked, but now has been debunked. So that definitely is something to consider. But I still don't think it changes how you feel when you read the book. And I just think this is always going to be something in the back of my head that I have available to consider when I'm interacting with, when I'm going about my day, or when I'm trying to think of something in a new light. This will always be there, and I'm never going to forget it for that. And I think that you have to read this. The other thing, just while I'm thinking about it, is the second part of the book. The It takes liberties with this like not supernatural power that he has, and it becomes a bit ridiculous to the point where, like, by like 80% of the book, I just gave up on thinking this was grounded in science. It was like, well, like, he's just magical, like this is just magic. And the author kind of keeps trying to remind you that it's not, that it's all kind of grounded and explainable, but it gets so ridiculous that you just have to kind of throw that out the window, or at least I did. I could not suspend my disbelief for that long. But that said, overall, I think I gave it a 5 on Goodreads, which I don't do very often. And I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the Goodreads rating system, but or really rating books in general. But it is a top tier book. I consider it one of the greats, even with this kind of weaker second half and all those things I just said. It's phenomenal.